In 1930, an elderly spinster solved a murder that baffled the police, the professional detectives, and everyone else in the village. She didn't use forensics or brilliant deductions. She used something far more powerful, an understanding of human nature. Agatha Christie's The Murder at the Vicarage introduced Miss Jane Marple to the world. This was Christie's answer to the hard-boiled detectives and gentleman sleuths that dominated mystery fiction. Miss Marple wasn't a private investigator. She wasn't brilliant in the traditional sense. She was an elderly woman living in a small English village who happened to understand people better than anyone else, and that made her unstoppable. The Murder at the Vicarage wasn't just the birth of Miss Marple. It was Christie perfecting what she did best, creating a closed circle of suspects where everyone had a motive, everyone had opportunity, and the solution was hiding in plain sight the entire time. The genius was in making you overlook the obvious while chasing red herrings. And Miss Marple saw through all of it by comparing the murderer to someone she knew from the village years ago. Miss Marple's method is deceptively simple. She believes that human nature is universal and unchanging. The same types of people exist everywhere, committing the same types of crimes for the same reasons. If you've lived long enough and paid attention, you've seen every human pattern there is. A jealous shopkeeper in St. Mary Mead behaves the same way as a jealous wife in a murder case. The circumstances change, but the psychology doesn't. This gives Miss Marple an advantage that professional detectives lack. She's not trying to reconstruct events from evidence alone. She's reading character. When someone acts in a certain way, she recognizes the pattern. She's seen this before. Maybe not this exact situation, but the same kind of person doing the same kind of thing. And once she recognizes the pattern, she knows how it ends. Christie was making a point about intuition and experience. The most sophisticated forensic techniques in the world can't replace a deep understanding of how people actually behave. Miss Marple isn't smarter than the police in a conventional sense. She's wiser. She knows that people are predictable if you understand their nature. And in a small village where everyone knows everyone, human nature is on full display. If you're enjoying this breakdown of classic mysteries, subscribe to the channel. We're exploring the 1930 public domain entries that shaped modern detective fiction, from noir to cozy mysteries. Links to the full text and more Agatha Christie analysis are in the description below. St. Mary Mead is more than just a setting, it's a laboratory for human behavior. In a small village, privacy is impossible. Everyone knows everyone's business. Secrets don't stay hidden for long, and this creates perfect conditions for both crime and detection. The murderer can't just disappear into anonymity like in a big city. They have to stay, act normal, and hope no one notices the cracks in their story. Miss Marple thrives in this environment because she's been observing village life for decades. She knows who gossips, who cheats, who lies, who holds grudges. She's catalogued every personality type in the village. When a murder happens, she doesn't need to investigate from scratch. She already knows the cast of characters. She just needs to figure out which pattern fits. Christie was also commenting on class and social observation. The village isn't just quaint scenery. It's a hierarchical social system where everyone has a role and reputation to maintain. And when someone steps outside their expected role, Miss Marple notices it's often where the solution lies, in the small behavioral inconsistencies that only someone who truly knows the community would catch. One of Christie's signature moves is showing that everyone in the story is hiding something. Colonel Prothero, the murder victim, was universally hated. His wife was having an affair. His daughter was in a secret relationship. The vicar himself admits he wished the colonel dead. Every character has a motive, a secret, or both. And this creates a beautiful puzzle where everyone looks guilty. But here's the genius. Most of those secrets have nothing to do with the murder. They're red herrings. Christie understood that people lie and hide things for all kinds of reasons: embarrassment, shame, protecting someone else. Just because someone is acting suspiciously doesn't mean they're the killer. And this is where amateur detectives like the police go wrong. They chase every secret, treating them all as equally significant. Miss Marple, on the other hand, knows how to sort relevant secrets from irrelevant ones. She understands why people lie, and she can tell the difference between lying because you're guilty and lying because you're scared or ashamed. This psychological insight gives her a massive advantage. While everyone else is drowning in information, she's filtering for what actually matters. Christie was the master of misdirection. She invented half the classic mystery tropes, including the concept that the murderer is often the least likely suspect, the person you dismiss early because they seem too obvious, too innocent, or too peripheral to the main drama. In The Murder at the Vicarage, she plays with this brilliantly. The real killer is someone you've been trained to overlook. She does this by understanding how readers think. We're naturally drawn to dramatic suspects, the scorned lover, the greedy heir, the mysterious stranger. Christie knows this, so she makes these people seem guilty while hiding the real culprit in plain sight. The solution, when revealed, feels both shocking and inevitable. Of course, it was that person. All the clues were there, but you were looking in the wrong direction. This is Christie's genius. She doesn't cheat. Every clue is fair. The solution is always logically sound. But she manipulates your attention so expertly that you don't see it until she wants you to. And Miss Marple is the perfect detective for this kind of story because she doesn't get distracted by drama. She watches quietly, notices the small inconsistencies, and waits for the pattern to become clear. Miss Marple's method is more relevant now than ever. In a world drowning in information, the ability to recognize patterns in human behavior is invaluable. Social media, corporate environments, even personal relationships, they all operate on the same fundamental principles. People are predictable. If you've seen enough, you can spot the patterns. Miss Marple would thrive in the modern world. One of Miss Marple's greatest assets is that people underestimate her. She's an elderly woman who knits gossips and seems harmless. Nobody sees her as a threat. They talk freely around her, assuming she's not paying attention or doesn't understand. This gives her access to information that a professional detective would never get. Christie understood the power of being underestimated. In a society that dismisses women, especially older women, as irrelevant, Miss Marple turns that invisibility into a weapon. She sees everything because no one thinks to hide from her, and by the time people realize she's the most dangerous person in the room, it's too late. She already knows the truth. This theme resonates because it's about power dynamics and perception. The people who seem least threatening are often the most observant. They're not performing. They're not trying to prove anything. They're just watching, learning, and understanding. And when they finally reveal what they know, it's devastating because nobody saw it coming. In the world of detective fiction, gossip is usually portrayed as trivial or malicious. But Christie shows that gossip is actually a form of distributed intelligence. In a village, gossip is how information circulates. It's the informal network that connects everyone and reveals what's really happening beneath the surface of polite society. Miss Marple doesn't dismiss gossip. She mines it for truth. She knows that gossip often contains kernels of accurate observation, even when it's exaggerated or malicious. People notice things, they talk. And if you know how to filter signal from noise, you can learn an enormous amount. The key is understanding which gossip is based on actual observation and which is speculation or wishful thinking. This is another form of pattern recognition. Miss Marple has heard thousands of pieces of gossip over the years. She knows which types of gossip tend to be accurate and which don't. She knows who gossips reliably and who embellishes. This collective intelligence, when processed by someone with her experience, becomes a powerful investigative tool that no lone detective could match. So what can we learn from Miss Marple? First, pay attention to patterns in human behavior. People are creatures of habit. They repeat the same patterns in different contexts. If you've seen someone behave a certain way once, they'll likely behave that way again when similar circumstances arise. This applies to relationships, business, any situation where you're trying to predict what someone will do. Second, don't assume secrets equal guilt. When someone is hiding something or acting suspiciously, it doesn't automatically mean they're responsible for the main problem. People have all kinds of reasons to lie or conceal information. The trick is distinguishing between relevant deception and irrelevant embarrassment. Focus on what actually matters to the core issue, not every inconsistency you notice. Third, learn to filter information like Miss Marple. We're all drowning in noise, rumors, opinions, speculation, exaggeration. The skill isn't collecting more information. It's knowing which information to trust and which to ignore. Who has a track record of accurate observation? What kinds of claims tend to be reliable? Develop that discernment, and you'll see through confusion that baffles everyone else. And fourth, being underestimated is an advantage, not a disadvantage. If people dismiss you, they'll speak freely around you. They'll make mistakes they wouldn't make if they saw you as a threat. You can learn more by being invisible than by being impressive. Miss Marple understood this instinctively. She never tried to prove how smart she was. She just quietly solved the case. Finally, trust your experience. Miss Marple doesn't second-guess herself. She's seen enough of human nature to know when she's right. If something doesn't fit the pattern, she pays attention. If someone's behavior seems off in a way that matches a pattern she's seen before, she trusts that instinct. Experience matters. The longer you observe people, the better you get at reading them. Christie created a detective who proved that wisdom beats cleverness, that observation beats deduction, and that understanding human nature beats forensic science. Miss Marple doesn't need physical evidence. She needs to understand why someone would commit murder, and whether their character fits that profile. Once she knows that, the rest is just confirming details. The murder at the Vicarage isn't just a cozy mystery. It's a masterclass in reading people, recognizing patterns, and seeing through deception. Agatha Christie gave us a detective who proved that the most powerful investigative tool isn't technology or brilliant deduction. It's a lifetime of watching human nature in action. Miss Marple showed that an elderly woman in a small village could outsmart everyone else simply by paying attention and remembering what she'd seen. Nearly a century later, her method is more relevant than ever. Tomorrow, I'll distill her entire approach into one 60-second psychology trick you can use immediately. This video was created by combining human research and scriptwriting with AI-assisted visuals and production. For the full text of Christie's novel, more Miss Marple mysteries, and guides to Golden Age detective fiction, check the links in the description below.